My name is Francesca Martinez, and at 32, I thought I understood the rhythms of Limestone Valley Hospital in Chalk Ridge, Kentucky. As the night shift charge nurse in our medical surgical unit, I'd grown accustomed to the subtle orchestration that kept our small regional hospital functioning, the quiet efficiency of seasoned staff, the predictable ebb and flow of patient admissions, the reassuring hum of monitors that meant everything was under control. Limestone Valley served a community of 12,000 residents nestled in the rolling hills of eastern Kentucky. We weren't a trauma center or teaching hospital, but we prided ourselves on quality care and the kind of personal attention that only a close-knit facility could provide. Every nurse knew every doctor, every technician recognized the footsteps of their colleagues in the hallway, and our patient satisfaction scores consistently ranked in the top percentile for hospitals our size. That's why the small inconsistencies began to feel so unsettling. It started with the Epic system showing patient flow metrics that didn't quite match what I observed during my rounds. Our quality improvement nurse, Catherine Rodriguez, had been with the hospital for 8 years, longer than anyone in our department. She trained staff on proper documentation and safety procedures, implemented our current patient tracking protocols, and served as the bridge between our floor nurses and hospital administration. Catherine's meticulous attention to detail had earned her recognition from the Kentucky Hospital Association just last year. But lately, something felt off about the numbers she presented during our monthly quality meetings. The discrepancies were subtle at first. Discharge times that seemed earlier than I remembered. Average length of stay calculations that appeared more favorable than the reality I witnessed during my 12-hour shifts. Patient satisfaction scores that climbed steadily upward, despite several challenging cases that should have impacted our ratings. I'd been working nights for 3 years, and night shift nurses develop an almost supernatural awareness of their environment. We notice when the usual patterns shift, when the familiar becomes foreign. The hospital's capacity management reports showed we were operating at optimal efficiency, but I regularly saw patients waiting in the emergency department longer than our metrics suggested, and our medical surgical beds seemed fuller than the official occupancy rates indicated. Catherine always had explanations: system lag times, reporting delays, the natural variation that occurred in any healthcare setting. Her responses were professional, detailed, and delivered with the confidence of someone who'd built her reputation on precision and reliability. Still, they grew stronger each night as I walked the dimly lit corridors of Limestone Valley Hospital, checking on patients and reviewing charts. The numbers told one story, but my eyes told another. And in a profession where accuracy could mean the difference between life and death, even small discrepancies demanded attention. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in October, when I discovered something in the system that made my blood run cold. The discovery happened during what should have been a routine chart review. I was working my usual Tuesday night shift, the hospital settling into its familiar rhythm of muted conversations and distant monitor beeps. As charge nurse, I made it my practice to review our unit's metrics before the morning handoff, ensuring our documentation aligned with the patient census and discharge planning. That's when I noticed the timestamp discrepancy. Mrs. Henderson in room 314 had been discharged according to our system at 2:47 p.m., but I distinctly remembered her asking me about her medication schedule during my 7 p.m. rounds. When I pulled up her full record, the discharge order showed Catherine Martinez's electronic signature, dated and timed for mid-afternoon. Yet Mrs. Henderson's nurse had documented vital signs at 6 p.m., and the dietary department had delivered her dinner tray at 5:30. I sat in the nurse's station, staring at the screen as the pieces began forming a disturbing picture. If Catherine was backdating discharge times, our average length of stay calculations would appear artificially low. Our bed turnover rates would seem more efficient than reality. The capacity management metrics that influenced everything, from staffing decisions to state reporting, would be fundamentally flawed. My relationship with Catherine went back 4 years, to my first week at Limestone Valley Hospital. She'd been the one to walk me through our quality improvement protocols, explaining how proper documentation protected both patients and staff. Integrity in our data means integrity in our care, she'd told me then, her voice carrying the conviction of someone who dedicated her career to healthcare excellence. Catherine had trained dozens of nurses on epic documentation, led our unit through 2 successful Joint Commission surveys, and implemented the patient tracking protocols that other hospitals in our region had adopted as best practices. She'd mentored new graduates, served on the hospital's ethics committee, and volunteered her time for community health screenings in rural Chalk Ridge. But trust, I was learning, could be a dangerous thing in the wrong hands. Over the next several nights, I began paying closer attention to the patterns. I started keeping my own informal log of patient activities, noting actual discharge times, bed assignments, and census numbers. The discrepancies weren't random. They followed a clear pattern designed to make our unit appear more efficient than it actually was. Patients who left after 6 p.m. were consistently recorded as afternoon discharges. Weekend stays were shortened by manipulating admission times. Emergency department holds that extended beyond our target metrics simply disappeared from the reports, as if those patients had never existed in our system. The implications were staggering. Hospital administrators used these metrics to make staffing decisions, budget allocations, and strategic planning choices. Insurance companies relied on our reported efficiency measures for contract negotiations. State regulators used our data to assess compliance with capacity management requirements. Catherine was presenting a false picture of our hospital's operations, and I couldn't understand why. The answer came during a staff meeting in late October, when our hospital administrator, Ethan Rodriguez, announced that Limestone Valley had been selected for a state efficiency award based on our outstanding capacity management metrics. The recognition came with a substantial grant for quality improvement initiatives and would be featured in the Kentucky Hospital Association's annual report. I watched Catherine accept the congratulations from our colleagues, her smile genuine and warm as she thanked everyone for their dedication to excellence. But I noticed something else, the slight in her shoulders, the way her eyes didn't quite meet mine when she spoke about the importance of accurate documentation. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I accessed the system logs that tracked user activity, something my charge nurse credentials allowed during quality review processes. What I found made my hands shake as I scrolled through screen after screen of. Catherine had been systematically accessing patient records hours or even days after discharge, modifying timestamps and adjusting documentation to improve our metrics. The pattern went back 18 months, coinciding with the hospital's implementation of new performance-based incentives for department managers. The scope was breathtaking. Hundreds of patient records had been altered, creating a fictional narrative of efficiency that had earned Catherine recognition, influenced hospital policy, and potentially affected patient care decisions based on false data. I printed the ahem, my heart pounding as the pages emerged from the laser printer in the quiet nurses' station. Each page represented a violation of everything we'd sworn to uphold as healthcare professionals. The trust patients placed in us, the integrity of our medical records, the foundation of based care. Catherine had compromised it all. But confronting her wouldn't be simple. Catherine wasn't just my colleague. She was my mentor, my friend, and one of the most respected nurses in our hospital. She had connections throughout the administration, relationships built over years of exemplary service, and a reputation that would make any accusation seem impossible to believe. As dawn approached and the day shift began arriving, I locked the in my personal locker and tried to process what I'd discovered. The woman who taught me about professional integrity had been living a lie for over a year, manipulating data that affected every aspect of our hospital's operations. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Catherine hadn't just violated professional standards. She'd used her position of trust to deceive colleagues who relied on her expertise, administrators who made decisions based on her reports, and ultimately, the patients whose care depended on accurate information. I had a choice to make, and I knew that whatever I decided would change everything at Limestone Valley Hospital. The crack was clear, the violations were serious, and the consequences would ripple through every department in our facility. But as I walked to my car in the pale morning light, I realized that some betrayals were too significant to ignore, no matter how much they hurt to acknowledge. The next 48 hours felt like walking through quicksand. Every interaction with Catherine carried the weight of what I knew. Every smile she offered felt like another layer of deception. I found myself studying her face during our morning huddles, searching for signs of guilt or awareness that her carefully constructed facade was crumbling. On Tuesday morning, I made my decision. That couldn't remain hidden, regardless of the personal cost. I scheduled a meeting with Dr. Ethan Rodriguez, our Chief Medical Officer, requesting privacy for what I termed a quality assurance concern requiring immediate attention. His office on the 4th floor felt sterile and imposing as I sat across from his mahogany desk, the printed in a manila folder on my lap. Dr. Rodriguez had always been approachable, but this conversation would test every professional relationship I'd built at Limestone Valley. "Whitney, you mentioned quality assurance concerns. What's troubling you?" I opened the folder, my hands steadier than I'd expected. "Dr. Rodriguez, I've discovered systematic manipulation of patient flow metrics in our Epic system. The alterations span 14 months and involve hundreds of patient records." His expression shifted from casual interest to sharp attention as I laid out the kata, the timestamps, the pattern of changes, the correlation between Catherine's shifts and the data modifications. I watched his face process the implications, the policy decisions based on false information, the resource allocations influenced by manipulated statistics, the potential impact on patient care coordination. "These are serious allegations, Whitney. You understand what you're suggesting?" "I understand completely. Catherine Martinez has been altering discharge times, modifying bed turnover rates, and falsifying capacity metrics to create an appearance of improved efficiency that doesn't exist." Dr. Rodriguez studied the documentation for several minutes, his clinical mind processing with the same methodical approach he used for complex diagnoses. "This level of systematic manipulation would require significant knowledge of our systems and protocols. Catherine trained our staff on Epic documentation. She had administrative access and the technical knowledge to make these changes appear routine." The weight of betraying my mentor settled heavily in the room. Dr. Rodriguez set down the papers and looked directly at me. "Whitney, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. If these allegations are substantiated, we're looking at potential regulatory violations, compromised data integrity, and serious professional misconduct." "I understand, but this speaks for itself." He nodded slowly. "I'm initiating an immediate investigation. You'll need to provide a formal statement to our compliance department, and this information will be reported to the appropriate regulatory bodies. Are you prepared for that level of scrutiny?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Reporting Catherine meant exposing myself to investigation, questioning my own competence for not discovering the manipulation sooner, and potentially facing retaliation from colleagues who respected her. "I'm prepared, Dr. Rodriguez. Patient care integrity has to come first." Within hours, the hospital's compliance machinery activated with clinical efficiency. Francesca Thompson from our legal department arrived to coordinate the investigation, while IT security began forensic analysis of our Epic system. The administration moved swiftly to contain potential damage, but word of an ongoing quality review began circulating through the hospital's informal communication networks. Catherine's reaction to the increased scrutiny was masterful in its subtlety. She expressed concern about the, quote, disruption to our quality improvement initiatives and offered to assist with any technical questions about our documentation systems. Her willingness to help felt like watching a skilled performer maintain character even as the stage collapsed around them. But I wasn't alone in this revelation. Ethan Williams, a charge nurse from the emergency department, approached me during a quiet moment in the staff break room on Wednesday evening. "Whitney, I've been thinking about some inconsistencies I noticed in our patient flow reports," he said quietly, glancing around to ensure privacy. "The numbers never quite matched what I was seeing during my shifts, especially during peak capacity periods." His validation felt like oxygen after holding my breath for days. Ethan had noticed the same discrepancies that had initially caught my attention, but, like me, he'd trusted Catherine's expertise and dismissed his concerns. "I documented some of those observations," he continued. "If there's an investigation happening, my notes might be relevant." The investigation moved with methodical precision over the following week. IT forensics confirmed the pattern of unauthorized modifications, compliance reviewed policy violations, and administration assessed the scope of decisions influenced by the manipulated data. Catherine continued her duties under increased supervision, maintaining her professional demeanor while the mounted against her. The confrontation came on a Friday afternoon in the conference room adjacent to the Quality Improvement Office. Catherine sat across from Dr. Rodriguez, Francesca Thompson, and myself, the weight of spread across the table between us like an indictment. "Catherine, we've completed our preliminary investigation into irregularities in our patient flow metrics," Dr. Rodriguez began. "The indicates systematic manipulation of Epic records over a 14-month period." Catherine's composure remained intact, but I noticed the slight tightening around her eyes, the way her hands stilled on the table. "I'm not sure I understand the nature of these irregularities." Francesca Thompson opened the compliance folder. "Ms. Martinez, forensic analysis shows that modifications to patient discharge times and bed turnover data correlate directly with your system access logs. These changes created false improvements in our capacity management metrics." The room fell silent as Catherine processed the accusation. For a moment I saw the woman who'd mentored me, who'd taught me about professional integrity, who'd earned respect through years of dedicated service. Then I saw the person who'd systematically violated that trust for over a year. "The pressure to show improvement was overwhelming," Catherine said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Administration demanded better metrics, department managers questioned our efficiency, and I thought small adjustments wouldn't hurt anyone." The admission hung in the air like a confession that changed everything. Dr. Rodriguez leaned, his expression mixing disappointment with professional necessity. "Catherine, these weren't small adjustments. You manipulated hundreds of records, influenced policy decisions, and compromised the integrity of our quality improvement programs." "I never intended for it to go this far," she continued, the careful composure finally cracking. "It started with a few modifications to meet quarterly targets, but the expectations kept increasing. I couldn't maintain the improvements without continuing the adjustments." Francesca Thompson documented every word, the legal implications of Catherine's confession creating a paper trail that would follow her throughout any future proceedings. The woman who'd built her career on quality improvement had destroyed it through the very systems she'd helped implement. "Ms. Martinez, effective immediately, you're suspended pending completion of this investigation," Dr. Rodriguez announced. "Your system access is revoked, and you're prohibited from accessing patient records or quality improvement data." Catherine nodded, accepting the consequences with the same professionalism she'd maintained throughout her deception. As she gathered her personal belongings from the Quality Improvement Office, I watched a respected colleague become a cautionary tale about the dangers of compromising professional integrity under pressure. The investigation's completion brought swift consequences. Catherine's employment was terminated, regulatory bodies were notified, and our hospital implemented additional oversight measures for quality improvement data. The manipulated metrics were corrected, revealing the true scope of our capacity management challenges and necessitating honest conversations about resource allocation and efficiency expectations. But the personal cost of exposing the betrayal extended beyond Catherine's departure. Some colleagues questioned my motives for reporting a respected mentor, while others praised my commitment to professional integrity. The hospital's culture shifted subtly, with increased awareness of the pressures that could lead dedicated professionals to compromise their values. Ethan Williams became an unexpected ally throughout the aftermath, his support helping me navigate the complex emotions of betraying someone I'd trusted and respected. His validation of my concerns and willingness to provide corroborating demonstrated that integrity sometimes required collective courage. As the immediate crisis resolved and normal operations resumed, I found myself reflecting on the lessons embedded in Catherine's betrayal. The pressure to meet unrealistic expectations, the gradual erosion of ethical boundaries, and the way good intentions could lead to devastating consequences for professional integrity and patient care. The silence in the Quality Improvement Office felt different now, no longer comfortable but earned through the difficult process of confronting uncomfortable truths and maintaining the standards that defined our profession. 12 months later, I stood before a packed auditorium at the Kentucky Healthcare Quality Conference, adjusting the microphone as I prepared to deliver my keynote address. The irony wasn't lost on me. speaking about quality integrity from the same stage where Catherine Martinez had presented her fabricated success stories just 2 years earlier. Quality improvement isn't just about numbers on a dashboard, I began, my voice carrying across the silent room. It's about the fundamental trust between healthcare professionals and the patients we serve. When we compromise that integrity, we don't just manipulate data, we betray the very foundation of medical care. The audience of quality directors, hospital administrators, and healthcare professionals listened intently as I shared the lessons learned from Limestone Valley Hospital's capacity management crisis. Without naming Catherine directly, I spoke about the dangerous pressure to present perfect metrics, the gradual erosion of ethical boundaries, and the courage required to confront uncomfortable truths within our own institutions. My new position as Regional Quality Director for the Kentucky Hospital Association had emerged from the aftermath of the investigation. The State Health Department, impressed by my commitment to transparency during the regulatory review, had offered me the opportunity to develop statewide protocols for quality data integrity. It felt like redemption, transforming a painful betrayal into meaningful reform. Ethan Williams, now promoted to Chief Quality Officer at Limestone Valley, had become a trusted colleague and friend. His support during the investigation's darkest moments had evolved into a professional partnership focused on implementing the oversight measures we'd recommended. Our monthly calls reviewing quality metrics across the region carried none of the out that had marked those final weeks with Catherine. The new protocols we'd developed required dual verification for all capacity management data, mandatory rotation of quality improvement responsibilities, and regular audits by external reviewers. These measures, born from Catherine's betrayal, were now being adopted by hospitals across Kentucky and neighboring states. During my presentation, I noticed several audience members taking notes as I described the warning signs of data manipulation, the subtle inconsistencies, the defensive responses to routine questions, the gradual isolation from collaborative review processes. These were the lessons Catherine had taught me, though not in the way she'd intended. I speak about the importance of quality integrity in patient care not from a position of moral superiority, I continued, but from the humbling experience of discovering that even respected colleagues can lose their way under pressure. Our responsibility extends beyond our own ethical choices to creating systems that support integrity and catch problems before they compromise patient safety. The standing ovation that followed felt different from the polite applause Catherine used to receive for her presentations. This recognition came from sharing uncomfortable truths rather than comfortable lies, from acknowledging systemic failures rather than claiming false successes. After the conference, I drove through the familiar hills of Chalk Ridge, past Limestone Valley Hospital where my career had taken such an unexpected turn. The building looked the same, but I knew the culture inside had shifted toward greater transparency and accountability. Catherine's office had been converted into a collaborative workspace where multiple quality improvement staff could work together, eliminating the isolation that had enabled her deception. The silence in my car as I headed home carried a weight of completion. The investigation was closed, the reforms were implemented, and the painful lessons had been transformed into meaningful change. The betrayal that had shattered my trust in a respected mentor had ultimately strengthened my commitment to the principles that defined quality healthcare. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.